Today we're going to take a look at the Nitro Plus Radeon RX 590 card by Sapphire. Let's see how it holds up as an entry-level card. So why am I taking a look at this one? Well, a couple things. I had actually ordered this as a replacement for the graphics card that's in my Mac Pro. I have an older Mac Pro pre this new round, non-expandable Mac Pro era. I have no idea why Apple's done that, but regardless, I've kept mine. I actually do use it. I know, shocker. This is not Apple stuff here, but I do use an Apple computer as well. And I ordered this for that computer because the fan in it and the one that's in there right now has completely stopped spinning. So it just sits at 85 degrees, period, without even being used. So it's kind of scary, right? So I got this thing and I'm like, I wonder how well this would work for gaming in a standard computer. So I figured, I would run some benchmarks and see what this thing is like before I pop it in my Mac and kind of go from there. Anyway, first thing we're gonna do here is get this swapped out. We're gonna remove the drivers from my nVidia because I've currently got a EVGA for the Win 3 RTX 2080 card in here. So let's go ahead, get the display driver uninstaller running, and get this software installed, and see how it turns out. We have the graphics card installed here. I've got the Sapphire Trix overclocking software installed. So first thing to note, and you can probably see it on camera, fans aren't even spinning. Obviously the graphics card is not under load. Currently it's sitting at 41 degrees. The temperature, as you can see in this crazy software setup. I'm not a big fan of how they have their software laid out, but I guess that's personal preference. It's definitely big. There's no question there. Base clock set at 1560 with memory clock set at 2100 megahertz. I've done nothing to this at all. Just do a couple overviews on this, and then we're going to get into some benchmarks, and we'll overclock it real quick and run some additional benchmarks, and we'll call it a day. So anyway, first thing wanted to note is that this does have, again, it's an all blue card. I don't know why they did that. For me, it won't matter because it's going to be inside of a Mac anyway. I'll never see it. No one will. It'll just be inside their big silver case. But unless you're doing some sort of weird blue theme, like, I guess it would kind of work with this just because I could make it work, but I'm not a fan of the blue shroud, honestly, at all. I mean, I don't know. I don't like it. Personal preference, again, I guess. It does have an 8-pin and a 6-pin ancillary power supply connector. It does list the 6-pin as optional, so that's why I have it hooked up the way I do. Personally, when I have two different power connectors, I like to run two independent lines from the power supply to the graphics card. But for the purposes of this today, I'm not going to. I don't think that most people that would actually be buying this card would be worried as much about that. Obviously, when you have your entry-level cards, they're not going nuts with, high-end power supplies and all special cables and all of this stuff. It's an entry-level unit, or like in my case, it's going to be used in an Apple computer. It is pretty straightforward. It does have two HDMI cables, or HDMI imports. It has two DisplayPort imports, and it has your good old DVI import that I don't use anymore, and I'm sure there are people that do, but I'm not one of them. The lights on the fans are blue LED, and that's that. So again, you're stuck not being able to do much with it outside of what the card is. I don't know. I'm going to move on beyond that. So anyway, we have our base set up here. The software is pretty straightforward. If you want to add a little bit to the clock, it's literally single clicks, and you click apply, and there you go. Now you're at 1578. So I'm just going to put it back to the default because I want to get some baseline benchmarks run on this, and we'll see what happens. So let's take a look and see how it all turns out. Okay, so the charts speak for themselves. Card's not that exciting, obviously. It falls short in many areas, especially at anything where you want to max out your settings. If you want to play 1440 or 4K gaming, you just really can't do it with this card unless you're willing to settle with very low resolutions and the lowest settings you possibly can have. Does that mean that you can't game? No, obviously you could, but I would say you'd want to look at an RTX 2060 or a 2060 Ti, something like that, for about the same amount of money. This card just really isn't worth the money unless you're putting it into an Apple computer like I am, at which point I'm stuck with having to buy this or a 580 because those are the only things that are supported as current cards go. I did bring up the fact that you've got the lights locked down to blue for the LEDs. Well, that's partially true. The fans are blue LEDs. The light for the Sapphire is an RGB light, which really makes no sense. Obviously, they either A, didn't have the technical expertise to be able to put different types of LEDs in it, or it was just too expensive for them to do so. Regardless, this card is very underwhelming. I cannot suggest this in any scenario. I hate to say that. I mean, I'm waiting for AMD to come out with something that would compete with the higher end graphics cards that nVidia offers, but at this point I can't say that they do. And would I say go buy two of these to try to have one 2060? Of course not. You'd spend the money on the 2060 instead, or something higher end. I'm just really overall disappointed with what this card is at its price point. I guess it is what it is. If you like the video, you know what to do. If you don't like the video, you know what else to do. Please hit that subscribe button. And next week, we're actually going to go ahead and stick this in the Apple computer to show why I'm having to do that. And hope to see you guys next week.